Good evening. The Clinton administration is calling for an emergency session of the United Nations Security Council after 2 civilian aircraft were shot down by Cuba yesterday. The aircraft were part of a routine private search and rescue operation in the Florida Straits. Their downing is putting more pressure on the president to get tough with Fidel Castro. Art Rascon reports.
Down with Castro, the cry from Cuban Americans. It was the 1800 mission for Brothers to the Rescue, a group that helps refugees fleeing Cuba.
I want to show you here in the map approximately where this occurred.
The group insists it was flying outside Cuban airspace when its planes were shot down. Jose Basulto was in a third plane that was not attacked.
We saw a MiG, perhaps 2, cross diagonally across our windshield in front of our aircraft, like in a dive on an attack mode.
The group has been warned repeatedly by Cuba to stay out of its airspace, a 12-mile buffer zone around the island. According to senior administration officials and audio tapes from the planes, the timeline of events went like this. Just after 1 o'clock yesterday, 3 planes belonging to Brothers to the Rescue leave Miami. At 2:57, the planes begin to cross the 24th parallel. They are warned by Cuba to stay away. Minutes later, MiG fighters leave Cuba. At 3:22, one of the Brothers to the Rescue planes flies 2 miles into Cuban airspace. Cuban fighter pilots ignore that plane and 2 minutes later shoot down one in international waters. Soon after, a Cuban fighter pilot shoots down another plane, this one 14 miles outside Cuban airspace. The plume of smoke could be seen from a nearby cruise ship, where several people witnessed the attack.
There was the fire coming out of the sky, rolling and down, and it just hit the water and it started blazing there.
In Cuba, a different spin on what happened. Cuban authorities insist all planes were violating their airspace. The message from Cuba may be one of trying to teach the Cuban-American group a harsh lesson.
To bring out their MiG jets for this little Cessna plane, I think, is not just a message to Brothers to the Rescue. It's a message to the United States that this is still a military power.
But apparently a military power without any regard for international law, which clearly states several options must be followed before any force is used. First and foremost, escorting the aircraft out of its airspace, something Cuban fighter pilots never tried to do. Art Rascon, CBS News, Miami.
The Cuban government said it sent a very clear message to the exile community with the downing of the aircraft. The Clinton administration sent a very clear message back to Cuba. What is not clear is what, if anything, President Clinton will do to respond. Cheryl Atkinson has the news from the White House.
Secretary of State Warren Christopher emerged from the meetings at the White House to denounce the Cuban shoot-downs.
The Cuban actions yesterday were a blatant violation of international law and a violation of the norms of civilized behavior.
The U.S. is convinced the Cubans acted in international waters, and President Clinton is not ruling out a military response.
We will not limit ourselves to a multilateral action, but we'll be considering actions the United States can take on its own.
But the U.S. was warned something like this could happen. 2 weeks ago, a group of senior retired U.S. military officers met with Cuban military leaders in Havana. The Cubans complained that the U.S. has done nothing to stop repeated violations of its airspace by exile groups.
We have the means, anti-aircraft and aircraft means, to bring them down any moment. If we haven't done so, it's precisely because we do not want to overheat the situation.
Retired Admiral Eugene Carroll was at the meeting.
I advised them that I thought it would be a disaster, and I'm afraid that they just reached the point where they thought, well, we've warned them, we've told them, now we'll act.
Carroll says he passed on the warnings to high-level officials, and Christopher acknowledged there have been warnings.
Our consistent position with them is to remind them of the importance of their maintaining observance to international law.
Out on the campaign trail, Republicans were quick to criticize the president's Cuba policy.
This administration doesn't have a policy. Everything, is always trying to get closer to Castro. In my view, it ought to be just the opposite.
If they're international waters, I would recommend, and they're attacking planes in international waters, I would shoot the Cuban planes down.
U.S. officials are mystified as to why Cuba would shoot down civilian planes at a time when it seems to want better relations. But one thing is clear. If U.S.-Cuba relations had taken a step forward in the past year, they've now taken 2 steps back. Cheryl Atkinson, CBS News, the White House.